Hey guys, I'm back. I didn't go AWOL. I appreciate all the messages checking in to see where I was at. I took a little bit of time off. As all you guys know, the work-life balance is hard sometimes. Being a present boss, giving customers consistent quality while fumbling through and learning how to run a business and still being a good husband and father is really rough sometimes. And sometimes you have to back burner stuff that you really love to do, like this podcast. And with that being said, if you guys caught my quick little intro asking that I want to hear from you guys, I want to clarify something. I've been pretty selective about who I choose to have on here for reasons. I want to have people who are relatable and who have been there and in the trenches. I want to talk to people who have something to teach or something to learn. I started this podcast because I wanted to meet and learn from other people in the industry. I regularly get emails from you guys, and I'm honored that you even care about my opinion. I'm positive there are way more qualified people out there to help me answer these most asked questions. So instead of doing the same format as I always do, I kind of want to table a few questions and have a mini series with short episodes for the next couple months to answer some of those questions that everybody has been asking. So yes, I do want to hear from you guys. I'm going to put a list of questions out on our Instagram page, such as what did you learn the hard way? What was your biggest pain point? What do you wish you knew before you started? And things like that. If you've got answers to some of these questions, I want to hear from you. We can make these short, we can make these 15 minutes, we can make these 30 minutes, we can make these an hour if you want. It's up to you guys and what you feel you can add value to. So, by the time you hear this, I want to have these questions posted. If you want to hop on a call with me, give me an email, kevin@jmwfabrication.com. We'll set up a time and we'll see what we can do. I want to start putting these out as they come. So we're going to get back into things pretty quick. So if you've got something, reach out to me, kevin@jmwfabrication.com. And until next time, get out there, get it done, and get it invoiced. Hey guys, welcome to the Welding Business Owners Podcast, where our podcast is late, but our bids are on time. I'm your host, Kevin, with JMW Fabrication. Today, we've got episode number 2 with Dillon from Yeti Welding. My talk with him was super valuable. I really took a lot out of it for my business personally. I hope you guys do too. You can find him over on Instagram at Yeti_Welding. You can find us at Welding Business Owners Podcast, and you can find me at JMW Fabrication. Now, without any further ado, this is episode number 2.
How do you plug somebody in who's going to sit in the office, and how do you bill for them? How do you bill your customer for the guy who answered the email? Do you put that on the invoice?
I'm figuring that out right now.
Yeah, sweet. So I looked at it into our burden cost analysis,
Yep.
How much money are we charging an hour, and what does that overhead actually look at? And, it wasn't until maybe a year and a half later after we had plugged people in the office that we're like, wait, we never bill for your time. How do we afford you? And that was like that, like we are losing $50,000 a year somewhere, and we found the leak. It was paying the office guys, and now we bill accordingly. We bill differently, and we can have a separate conversation of that, of how I break that down into cost, unless you want me to answer it here.
No, I do. Totally. Like, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear what your team lead does and what his position looks like. Like, is he like a project manager? And I want you to unpack it all.
So we've never been one to have like specific set titles. Kevin is the boss. Right. Dillon is the foreman. You are a welder. My team works really creatively and really collaboratively together. We all mesh really, really well. And, if you followed us on social media, you can tell that they get along really well. And that's an awesome culture, and I want to maintain that in my shop as much as I can. But once we're 10 plus individuals, you kind of need those designated roles in areas. But, my role as the business owner is I sell the jobs. I make sure that my clients have chance to hear from me within the first 1 or 2 interactions when they meet my team in the office, whether it's through an email or a phone call. I make sure that I try to follow up with a customer who's new and let them know that we've seen them. and that what my role is. I'll help with all of the billing practices, make sure the money goes in and the money goes out, working alongside my bookkeepers. Shout out to 24-hour bookkeepers who maintain my books. They reconcile all my transactions, but I still bill out all of my own stuff, and I make sure that I receive all of the checks, take them to the bank, and I kind of maintain that. I meet with my accountant, make sure we can do our best with taxes through creative means with my accountant, legal ways. I just try to make sure that my employees are taken care of as much as possible. I really love spending money on new tools and new trucks and equipment to make them look good because it's fun to buy those new stuff. And that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then I got Mark in the office, and Mark's kind of like, if you've ever seen Spider-Man, he's the guy behind the computer, the bug in everybody's ear that's like telling him when to jump off the cliff at the right time to catch the airplane as it's flying by. That's Mark. Mark kind of hedges everything under the sun that comes through the computer. His main bread and butter that Mark is really, really good at is making sure that our bids are done. He'll make sure that he bids a project. And the way that he bids it is he goes through with some spreadsheets that we've got built out, and he'll build them out. And then before he sends a bid over a certain dollar amount, we make sure that it comes across my table and me and him review it. We usually have a 5 to 15 minute review of his work that he's done before we sent a bid out. He day to day does the bids, and then he'll follow up once bids are done with getting contracts from start to finish and signed. And he kind of does that in the office for himself. And then I got Matt in the office. Matt does similar to what Mark does with the biddings, but he does a little bit more of the creative drawings, drawing our railings, drawing the structures. He actually was the one who successfully drew our Firefly project, which we recently just finished up. So he helps out with the drawings. And then Matt also kind of goes from the office out into the shop. And so he takes those information that Mark has started. Matt makes sure that it gets formalized and formulated and out to the guys in the shop, and they understand what they're doing when they receive the print or where it is. And sometimes he goes out with them. McKay's in the same realms as Matt. They kind of both take that project and go from project start to finish and completion, whether it's helping the guys get their truck set up, going and doing some installs, but mainly understanding where the projects start and how they should finish out. And then all the guys in the shop, I don't think we have lead guys or non-lead guys. We just have team members, and everybody works as a team on the projects that they're specifically given. And, we do a lot of creative projects. And so when we get a project that we know others shine in doing, we make sure that we put together a team of individuals and we send them off with what we know that they're good at. So we'll pair them and we'll yoke them together with different people for different projects. So we don't have like an A team or a B team or a C team and they're all dedicated to each other. We kind of mix them up, and then, we just give them names and we say, okay, this is our Firefly project team. This is our Denver team. This is our Seattle team. You could be part of a couple different ones. And it's pretty fluid for now, but we're getting pretty busy, and I don't think it will sustain itself, the lifeblood, the way that I just described. I just don't think it will sustain for very much longer.
Right.
We're like at that peak of not breaking, but we're at that peak of the next level up is more infrastructure, more stuff to get us there.
What do you think that looks like? What do you think that next level of structure looks like for you guys?
I think the next level of structure, particularly for Yeti Welding where we're at, is a larger building to put more things into systems and processes. If you ever came to my shop looking through the glass lens of social media, Kevin, you would say, what? You guys do what? And you'd look around and you'd think that like everything you saw on social media was a lie. But with the individuals that we have on staff, we're in 1,600 square feet. That's as big as our shop is. You've seen the photos and things online. We are on 55 acres, and our shop yard itself is 2.5 acres of open shop yard. So that's where, our shop may be small, but that's where we have our CNC and our stuff. And then we do a lot of fabrication just simply in the yard. But I think having a building next, or a larger building envelope that we all can get behind and get under, and start integrating a little bit more CNC softwares and things that can help us streamline projects would help us get a little bit more structured and to the next level. But I don't know when to pull the trigger on that, Kevin. I don't know. I think that's a hard one.
Yeah. So like, are you guys using any sort of job software, or is it all just kind of like it flows?
As far as job software for like time tracking or
project management software, like time tracking, like how do you reconcile everything? So other than like taking prints and going out and showing guys, are you using anything to communicate? Just project management software or anything?
Yeah, no, it's great. Right now we're just using Google Sheets. So we've got Google Sheets and some reports built into there, and we're just managing and tracking just simply off of a Google Sheet that everybody shares and has access to. So you can see when a project is bid, how much the project was bid for, what the status is, and it's all just in a big, Excel. It's sheets, but it's all just in a big spreadsheet, and we just continually to update those lines as we go through. And we're not really doing any software things, and that's where I think, like I said, I think we're at almost a breaking point. We're at like our maximum with what we have right now. We're at that kind of infrastructure stage where we might have to go to, get Building Point or Stremis or one of those other softwares that you use to really manage stuff when there's this many moving parts. But we're right at that moment where we have to make that decision. Do we continue to grow this way, or do we take this system that we've got and just figure out how to continue just to make it a little bit better and make it work efficiently for the time being, but knowing that this is our glass ceiling that we can't break out of.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned before, as soon as you get too many things going on, you don't really know if you're making money or what's happening. You just know that it's working, right? And I think we've reached that port right there at Yeti Welding where like it's working, but if we continue to go any more, we have no idea. Being as vulnerable as I can, that's right where Yeti Welding is at. Like we're at a maximum right now.
Yeah, I found that. So right now we're implementing job shred, and it's always been a challenge because I've been the bottleneck in everything. I do the estimating, I do the project management, I do the sales, I do the site visits. Currently, I'm still like heading up doing the mobile work and the marketing. And when you wear so many hats, you don't do anything well. And I found that the first thing that I had to do was I had to convey with what's in my head to my foreman, Dillon, so that he can do his job effectively. And man, so many times I dropped the ball of like, he would go ahead and do something and I would be like, why'd you do it like that? Or he'd ask me questions. I'm like, what are you talking about? Go look at the pictures in the email I sent you. He's like, you didn't send me any pictures. I'm like, oh, crap. Okay. And then like I would go out on site visits and I would do the measurements and things. And then like it would be a 45-minute conversation for me to sit down with him and explain to him the customer wants this, the customer wants that. And like if he didn't write it down, like did I actually tell him? You know what I mean? So much stuff was lost in translation that I'm like, this is not sustainable. Like hour tracking. Like up until a few months ago, we were still tracking our time on the back of a sheet of paper. And then I'd have to rely on the guys to remember, like, okay, like how many hours did you work on this? Like, well, guess what? They forgot. Like 2 weeks ago, you worked on this and it was a T&M job. And now I lost an entire day of billable hours. You know what I mean?
I got to guess how many you did and hopefully that it's, ethical.
I was about 4 hours. About 4 hours? Like, come on. Like, were you 4 hours or were you not? Were you 4.5 hours? Like, was it actually 2 hours? Like, like that was so challenging for me. And my team's not as big as yours, but with growing and shrinking, now growing again, I'm like, we have to start off on a good foundation of being able to convey what's in my head. So our software, I'm able to upload pictures. I'm able to, like, my biggest thing was site addresses. I'd be like, all right, you're going here Tuesday morning, you go to here Wednesday morning. Okay. It'd be Tuesday morning, they'd be like, what's the address? Like, crap, I totally forgot. Like, they'd be like ready to pull up, like, oh, I don't have the address. You never sent it to me.
Yeah.
Dang. That's my fault, dude. I'm sorry. Like, you know.
What was the software that you're implementing?
Job Tread. Yeah. It was recommended by me from Josh from the Tradesman Experience. He did a whole lot of research on different ones. He swore up and down, and I was like, you know what? What the heck? Let me try it. And honestly, it's been really good. It really has. It takes longer to watch the setup videos than it does to actually set it up. But you have to understand exactly how it all works in order to implement it well on your end to explain to the guys how to do it. And it's a really powerful software, but it's also easy to use because you've got a whole lot of options that you can do, but you can dumb it down by the view that you set for each user. So like I see everything on here. I see all the jobs, I see the numbers, but if the guys just want to see what job they're on and how many hours they have to do that job, I can do that. And I can set it so that this is the fab time. This is the design time. This is how long it takes to cut, cope, and deburr. This is painting time. This is the time to clean up and take down the paint booth. This is the time to palletize and take it to the powder coater. Here's the drive time for the powder coater. Here's the install time. Here's your drive time to the install time. And break it all down for them. So it's easy for me to be able to be like, all right, we're good at this. We're not good at this. We lost money here. We made money here. I'm not saying I do this yet. We're still trying to get our feet under ourselves with this. It's things like our team meetings in the morning. You have to make a job for everybody to clock into the team meetings because I want everybody's time to be accounted for no matter what. I don't care if it's sweeping the floor. I'm going to make a line item under JMW Fabrication Customer that says I clocked in to clean the shop up, or I clocked in for team meeting, or I clocked in for whatever, shop improvements. And that way, like, I know, like, we spent this much last year on cleaning the shop. We spent this much last year in potential earnings on team meetings. Hey, we can't take 30 minutes for a team meeting every morning. Maybe we need to tighten it up to like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So the potential with it is so great. And we're only working at about 30% of what the potential is right now. With your team, it's going to be, honestly, I could see your team being like, why didn't we do this earlier? This is so much easier. You know what I mean? Because it's all the little stuff that just falls through the cracks. And there's so much like communication. You don't want to over communicate, but you want to have the perfect amount of communication. And that's kind of like a balance that you have to find.
Right. I like that. I'm going to look into it. I pulled it up here, Job Tread. I'm going to definitely take a look into it a little bit more. But we have used time tracking softwares in the past.
Okay.
We've used apps like Busy. We've used apps like WorkMax. Currently, right now, we're using an app called Clockify Me. And that's what the guys are clocking in and out of. And it does similar things like what you're saying. It job costs, and it helps us know, like, in the morning, we have office logistics. Everyone clocks in, starts their day off with office logistics. When they leave office logistics, they clock into their said jobs. And their said jobs, as they transition, they have to put a description of what they did. Usually all the office logistics in the morning comes into the safety meeting. You know, the first 15 minutes of our safety meeting. And we've started to integrate AI as much as we can to help us produce stuff. So for our safety meetings, I didn't want me, like, I've been in the job trade for a long time. And I hate it when Daryl sits up there and it's just Daryl giving the same safety training over and over and over and over. So I just prompted, ChatGPT. I said, this is what I have. This is what I do. Can you help me build a safety schedule over construction topics that are highlighted for the welding industry and have them include X and build it for 2 years out. So it took, and I input all of the staff. And so it spit out, and Kevin, it did it. It's AI, right? So it spit out in 15 seconds, it spit out a 2-year projection of the day the day of the month, the person's name, and the safety topic that they're going to talk about for 2 years. So I didn't have to think about, okay, what are we going to talk for our safety meeting today? Okay, Kevin, you do this today. I just had AI do it, and it was like, some of the topics are like, we'll pull one up, and it's just like hazardous materials and waste. And we're like, oh, cool, and then the next day it's like welding burns. And the next day it's like slips, trips, and falls. But it did it creatively. So we integrated AI a little bit like that. We make sure that all of our emails and stuff run through AI so that we're sounding as professional as possible. It kind of checks our grammar and things. But
really? Okay.
like I said, we're using Clockify. And Clockify has been working out really good with us. How we ended up with Clockify, I don't know. We've gone through a couple of different ones. Was one better than the other? I think they all have their own quirks and kinks. And the main reason why I've even changed from one app to the next as far as job costing and understanding our data is just simply the team behind me. As the team kind of came and changed as it could, we just moved to a different platform because we had different outcomes with different performers instead of saying this was consistent. The best constant is change. So now we're using Clockify, and I'm looking at this job thread that you've recommended. And as I run through it, I think it could definitely be something that we move to, as little as next week. But I'll take a deeper dive into it. But I did forget to answer that. We are using Clockify to do that, to make sure that we are on track and on schedule with the job bids that we put together. And then, again, we integrate AI as much as possible as we can. Because if they're going to take over our jobs, we might as well be part of it with them. So
heck yeah.
I've been using AI to send out letters of intent for purchasing other businesses around here. So I know that there's some business owners that have been in the game for a long time that are in their retirement stages. And, when I just walk into the shop and I'm like, hey, Daryl, are you ready to retire? They're like, I'm sure you are. And they're a bigger business than me. They don't take me as serious. So I've been using ChatGPT and AI to say, hey, I own this Yeti Welding company and I need you to make my assistant. I want to make an offer for this guy. Can you help me produce a letter of intent to look into purchasing their business? And it's been working out really great. Got a lot of positive response from a lot of business owners around here that I probably wouldn't have got if I wouldn't have done that. My employees, they use AI on their day-to-day to help them with their safety meetings. Sometimes they don't know what to talk about when it's bloodborne pathogens. What do you do in bloodborne pathogens? So they'll ask ChatGPT what it recommends to talk about during a safety meeting, and then they use that to produce their 10 to 15 minute safety meeting, because they all individually have their own day. Nobody gets to repeat the same day. And it's not just the foreman who talks about it, it's everybody. And so I'm like, if you don't know what to talk about, you need to ask ChatGPT and see what it comes up with and tell it you only have a 5 to 10 minute window to talk about it, and let me know what it says. And so, we've got some interns here that are learning the welding industry that don't know a lot of stuff, but we've learned a lot from them because of what they've been using, right? So it's worked out really well. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And you've seen my crew of guys, Kevin. My crew is fairly young,
Yeah.
We're young, and I just think that the future is in the technology. And if we can take the old welding wisdom that we can find and plug it into the new tech, I think we're going to make leaps and bounds over the guys who are not integrating that stuff.
Can you dive into the buying other businesses? Is that like a thing that we can talk about?
We can touch on it, just it's not specifics.
Yeah.
There's a couple of reasons why I did it. One, for the learning aspect, anytime that I can fast track my learning, I will. Instead of Googling about how to get a bank loan or whatever, I'll just walk into the bank and see what they tell me. Hey, can I get this? And they tell me no. And I'm like, well, why? And I want to learn fast, right? And so now a decade later running my own business, I know that my 15 to 16 employees, to get to that next level may just be easier by buying somebody's business that already has 10 to 15 or 20 individuals and merging us together, right? Maybe that's the key. Instead of growing with one key individual, I had the thought, what would happen if I just purchased an acquisition of somebody else's welding business and then was to have more individuals together to say, hey, this is how we're going to diversify. You're going to do this and you're going to do that, because I would be instantly purchasing somebody else's infrastructure, whether it was positively working or crumbling. They would have some sort of an infrastructure. And so when I started to send out the letters of intent, and I was intently looking at one particular business of purchasing, it was for that intent of buying his business, but his business actually didn't work out. My wife didn't think that it was a good fit for me, and I listened to her intuition. But during the whole particular process with the one business owner, I learned a lot. Mm-hmm. We didn't necessarily even get into the financials of his business. We didn't get into like his clients or anything like that. We were just mainly talking about how his business worked and why it worked the way that it did. And that gave me a lot of insights to think about, like, how can I start plugging this in before I started listening to the Welding Business Owners podcast, of course. And I was hacking it in before he came out with the podcast, Kevin.
That's why I did it, because we're all fighting the same battle. Why can't we all be on the same team and help each other out?
Exactly. And so I was doing it just a different, more creative way, other than now I listen to the Welding Business Owners podcast and I listen to it and I'm like, oh yeah, that was good stuff. And I write all that stuff down and I'm like, I don't need to. So I was doing that.
I'm taking notes right here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I've got a whole list of notes now. But after that first business and learning that, I thought, what would hurt? And then I just started sending them out to multiple business owners. And some business owners didn't want to give me their secret sauces about how their culture works in their company. They were just like, here's my books and here's how much projections and growth we do. And then I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, And so I had eyes on their financial statements and was seeing, what kind of gross levels they had and income and different things where they were spending their money. And then it got me to thinking about like how to do it a little bit different. I'm still heavily looking at a couple of businesses that are actually attractive for us taking over, giving us larger sized envelopes as far as building and teams, and taking into a different clientele that I don't have that they do. But I think within the next 1 to 2 years, we might have something to say differently about it.
Nice. And then you can take over their name and not have to worry about trademark infringement.
Yeah, of course. Right, exactly.
Lawyer, you are fired.
You are gone. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Come on back. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. If we take over another business, and it might just give me the opportunity to retire a little bit earlier than I want. That's kind of another goal of mine.
That's all of our goals.
Right.
I do want to get to that, but I want to circle back to your team quick. Mark does the estimating and Matt McKay kind of drawing, project shop management, foreman-ish. How did you find those guys? Did you recruit them? Did they find you? Were they friends? And also the rest of your team, how do you find and retain the team that you've got?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. A lot of my team I have organically brought on ourselves. I found a lot of our team organically by being so loud on social media. As social media evolved, it wasn't just about showing people what we could do, but the culture we had in my shop. And then it seemed like people were just almost showing up at the shop because they felt like they already knew the shop. And they'd say, hey, I saw you guys on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. Can I come and work for you guys? And so a lot of the guys just kind of came in there. Mark was just kind of a weird post on Facebook that I was looking for somebody, and he was one of 15 individuals that put in a resume, and I hired him. It's strictly through social media. I do a lot with the
Wow.
welding school, with the high school around here, with the high schools and the welding programs to make sure that they know that Yeti Welding is a thing. And then I also tell them and show the high schools when I'm there that like you don't have to just be a welder to work for a welding company. And I highlight aspects of my job. I highlight aspects of my estimators and the computer stuff. And, I know working with high schoolers kind of seems like a far left regiment where you need to be 18 to work in an environment like ours. And, you need a little bit more industry experience. But my thoughts are I'm in it for the long game. So when I'm talking to those high schoolers and tech colleges, I'm not expecting them to come and work for me immediately, but I'm expecting in 5 to 6 years after they've got industry experience and after they've been out into the world to remember, hey, I remember a guy who was there kind of creating a pipeline of people to work, if you will. And so a lot of the thing that I hear around from business owners here in Spanish Fork is, God, it's hard to find good help. It's hard to find good help. Do you know anybody that's looking for a job? And I say, yeah, I know about 50,000 people that are looking for a job. Because we've just been so proactive at forward thinking. How do we create something that people are always going to know instead of just putting an ad out on the classifieds ads or something like that? I try to spend some time in being proactive at trying to organically grow our network of individuals. And,
Okay.
we're to that point where we need people who have industry experience to come on the team and just feel the culture and be able to pick up our culture, but still have industry wisdom instead of bringing new talent on and training them up in our ways. Another creative way of creating a pipeline for individuals that we can find to work for us stemmed from your guys' welding competition, because recently you guys just did a fabricators competition or something, correct?
Fabricator Olympics.
The Fabricator Olympics. So the Fabricator Olympics, dude, I really wanted to be a part of it, but it got me thinking, and I thought, how can I capitalize on this in my area to retain customers or clients or new employees? And so instead of doing a Fabricator Olympics like what you held, I want to do it demographically just for my area. You got the high school competition, we got Skills USA, we got PMFG, those kinds of things. But I want to do a welding competition in the next 1 to 2 months here at Yeti Welding. And we'll do the similar thing that you guys did with the Fabricator Olympics, but it opens the door in the pipeline for individuals to intermix and mingle from shops and to see different shop cultures and to compete against each other for fun. I don't think it needs to be something super serious, but I want to do that. But then I also, during our welding competition, I want to call it the owners competition. And that will be a competition for only business owners who have 5 or more employees. And the reason why I say 5 or more employees, because maybe at 5 or more employees, as you don't spend as much time out in the shop as you used to. I come in and weld coupons to keep myself sharp right now, but I don't get to weld on the projects on a daily basis to keep myself sharp. I literally come in, I have a guy cut coupons and stack them in the corner for me, and I weld coupons, in my free time in the mornings before people get here to keep myself and skills sharp. But if I was to compete against some other business owners, it would be competing in the welding industry for business owners who don't have a lot of time to keep their skills sharp. And I think what it will do is, for those businesses, the company culture is like the boss, the disrespect for the boss in some companies. The boss has the nice truck, the boss never works, the boss doesn't, you don't get to see the things that the boss does behind the scenes. And so it kind of creates a little bit of animosity. And I think that if we had a bosses competition, it can bridge that gap together to where the employees are like, we have to make sure that Kevin beats Dillon, so your employees coming to Kevin and making sure that you're ready for the competition so that they don't look bad. And, I think that can really help out shop cultures in that regard, especially around here. I think that can bridge the gap between employees and employer so that they can get the support behind their employees. And then throwing the competition, it's basically a wide open door of come and work for Yeti Welding because we're throwing this competition, and you can come and see what we do for our employees on a daily basis without going to Kevin's business and saying, hey, can I pick from your employees to come and work at my shop? Because you would at the door, you would tell me no.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, no, don't take my guys. I know that you pay your guys more. I don't even want them to know that you pay them more.
Yeah.
But if I have an open door welding competition and I've invited everybody out to the competition and it's not specifics, and I've invited the employers to compete in the competition, it's openly saying, I'm going to hire your employees without I'm going to hire your employees.
So I love the idea of the bosses welding competition so much. I think we need to talk about this more off the podcast because really, like I've got a whole thing about the Fabricator Olympics, and ultimately I would like to do this and take it on the road and do the Northeast, the Southeast, the Western, the Midwest, and just take this on the road to do it. If you want to do something, we might be able to do something. I'm not going to lie. I might borrow your idea of the bosses because that is freaking awesome. And it's like you can do bosses. You can do shop foreman competitions to see who's got the best shop foreman. You can do foremen versus the bosses. And, you've got so many avenues with that. And I love that idea, dude. That is brilliant.
Yeah. Well, we got the idea originally from the Fabricators Olympics, right? And then we did a beta test instead of me just saying, hey, we're going to, give away these prizes or whatever. I threw a welding certification course. I don't know if you remember me announcing.
I saw that, yeah.
I needed some certifications for my welders. So I was going to hire a CWI to come in to the shop and do, full testing on all my guys and get them tested. So I thought, well, why don't I just invite other companies? And we made it a thing, right? I didn't know how many people would show up to my shop that day. None of my employees got certified that day, Kevin. I didn't have enough people. There was no time. I had too many people, too many business owners that came with their employees to get certified that day that my employees didn't even have a chance to take advantage of that day to get certified. So I had to pay the inspector for another day to inspect my individuals' welds and give them their certifications or qualifications. I guess it's a technical qualification.
Yeah.
But that was our test. We're like, hey, let's just test this and see, not knowing that 50 individuals would show up. And, half the individuals we taught how to set up a test. They always wanted to be certified welders, but they didn't know how to set a test up or what they needed to do particularly for it or what it means to be a certified welder. So, that was our test. And then we're like, bing, if we do the welding competition, it opens up a pipeline of come and work for Yeti Welding. And this is why.
Well, that's it for this episode, guys. I hope you guys really enjoyed it and got a lot of value out of it. Check back next week for episode number 3 with Dillon from Yeti Welding. Find him on Instagram, Yeti_welding. Find us, podcast, Welding Business Owners Podcast. And find me at JMW Fabrication. Until next time, get out there, get it done, and get it in, boys.